Mark, first off, Lasse Sorensen, what's the latest with him?
Post this interview, we have a meeting, and I will find out then.
Hopeful though, I guess that you're going to, the last thing you want is to pick up injuries early doors of the season. Yeah,
and my only concern for Lasse was having not had an injury before, when you don't know, you know your body, but you don't know your body. But reports yesterday were positive, so we'll hopefully get some good news.
You talked after the game on Saturday about comparing your points total from last year to this season. Is that a good barometer that you'll be able to use this year now you've had a season in League One?
Yes and no, not after 2 games. My point was around we want to win games, and last year we were unbeaten after 3, and we 3 points. This year we've lost 1 and won 1, so it's about getting the most points. I think the difficulty this year is there's 7 new teams in the league, and we worked out, you could argue there's 13 new managers, I referenced John at Portsmouth and Matt at Wycombe being new to their roles. I would imagine undoubtedly they will want time to get their style and philosophy across. So if you were to include those 2, so you kind of have to wait to see what the league looks like. But if you look at the averages every year, what gets in the playoffs, what goes down, what gets promoted, I don't think it's too far away from each other.
And I guess that year experience that you've had, you now know a little bit more of that, and the levels that are needed to get to wherever you want to get to.
Yeah, I was quite blind last year. Didn't know what to expect. Sadly, the nerves are still the same. Still a nervous wreck before games. But an understanding of the league, the level, the players, what's required, what looks good, what doesn't. We've had 14 months of creating a brand and an identity of who we are, which I think is very, very good. So from that regard, we're not going into the unknown, and when we play teams there's an understanding of what actually it looks like, whereas I remember last year being 10, 12 games in and still being unsure what I was going to see and what I was going to get. Maybe that was my fault, but certainly a lot more confident in what we're doing and what we're looking at.
This might sound a strange question, but do you feel more comfortable in the dugout now?
No, because from day one it was the one place I always felt comfortable. I'm not saying I'm any good. The hour before the game's horrendous. I've said multiple times I find the pressure of the job really hard. I don't mind. I think it's important to open up with people and tell them that, and I've thought I shouldn't actually say that. It might put people off somewhere down the line, but there's no point being dishonest. But the one place where I feel at my most confident and most comfortable is finally when we come out and the game's about to kick off. And again, I'm not saying we're any good, and I've had a couple of good beatings from Peterborough in particular, thank you to them. With a really bad result against Chippenham. So we've had bad days, but it's the one environment where I feel like I know what I'm doing. So that's the one bit I do really. I love games. I'm a head coach, but I love the game. Some people like the Monday to Friday. I've always loved the games, even when I was a player.
You switched your squad around a little bit last week at Notts County. Are you having to do that again tomorrow, or do you treat it differently because it's a league game rather than a cup match?
Every game I've ever played, I've always tried to pick a team to win the game. So last year in when we played Doncaster away, Barrow, in the Papa Johns, we made quite a lot of changes, but never ever picked a team to give somebody minutes. Always picked a team to win a game of football. So tomorrow's no different. Absolutely, we'll pick the strongest team we have available to win the game. That might mean several changes, it might mean none. We talked about it last week in a board meeting. Like, we take the cups really, really seriously. So always respect the opposition, always respect the competition, and tomorrow will be no different.
Northampton
haven't answered your question there, have I?
Northampton narrowly missed out the year before getting promoted. They got the job done last year. Does it feel like they're a club with momentum heading into League One?
Oh, I think so. And don't forget, they've been up, they've been down, they've been back up. So I think the trajectory curve that I talk about us a lot on, I think theirs is upward. An outstanding manager, done an incredible job. Fantastic stadium, really, really well supported club. Like, Northampton are a big club, and I've no doubt they'll want to be. They'd probably look at somebody like us who came up several years ago, and I'd like to think we've positioned ourselves or put ourselves in the league where we are a very good League One club on the up, and they'll be. I would imagine that clubs will probably look at us and I say us very, very carefully. I've only been here 5 minutes, so I've played no part really in it, if that makes sense. But I think they're a club that have got the potential to be a really good League One club. I think it's a big, big club.
And do you think you've managed in League Two now and League One, do you think it's a big jump from League Two to League One?
Yes.
For clubs?
I think all the leagues. Yeah, I think there is a big jump in all the leagues. The gaps, how sizable I don't know, but there's definitely a gap in each pyramid. There's a big gap. I wouldn't like to say one's bigger than the other. I think the problem with League One is there's just so many really top teams in it. I'm not saying they're better than Championship teams, but like there's some huge clubs in League One, and every year there must be 12, 13 owners and chairmen going, we're going to go up this year, and you know, only 3 go up, so there's going to be a lot of disappointments. I think that's where I find the difficult part of League One, and I think in League One the gap in the middle section is really, really closed in the summer. A lot of clubs have spent really, really well, and a lot of clubs have actually spent more money and have invested in players that we probably wouldn't seen. But yeah, to answer your question, I've seen it with players and I've seen it with the teams. Yeah, I think there's a sizable gap.